Hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by and seeing what I'm up to. My name is Nicki Bee, and I am so glad you are here with me. The dark psychology and manipulation techniques, plus how to analyze people. Let's dive in by Emmanuel May.
How to differentiate between persuasion and manipulation. Persuasion and manipulation are two methods of persuading people to do something for you or change their thinking to match yours. However, they follow very different styles. Persuasion does this by positively presenting facts and showing how they benefit the user, while manipulation does so by omitting information, playing with emotions, and unethically convincing someone. Persuasion and manipulation are not binary states. It is possible to have one with tones of the other. Integrity of persuasion. Although people manipulate and persuade them to get others to do what they want, persuasion is more honest. When you convince someone that you are only presenting your product, service, or argument to the best of your ability, you need not lie, omit information, or intimidate another person. Instead, the persuasion is right. The facts presented are real. It is giving people information they previously did not have, clearly and logically, in order to convince them by informing them rather than manipulating them. Handling and false. To manipulate is to get people to do what you want in subversive ways that are truly lacking. So while someone can convince someone else by giving them facts, a handler creates or insinuates them. They do not care how they achieve their results, as long as they reach it by means they are less concerned with, the facts and the integrity of their process. Facts versus emotions. Persuasion uses facts, while manipulation is based on emotions. This is because emotions are small, concrete, and harder to define than facts. If, for example, one car is 20% better than another, a salesperson would have to use manipulation in order to sell the second car to a financially shrewd customer. Instead of focusing on the raw facts, the mileage, the salesperson can manipulate the customer to sell the second car in terms of how it makes them feel. Goals. Bob Berg, a successful salesman, speaker, and writer, describes persuasion and manipulation in terms of what the persuader or manipulator wants. Persuasion will serve the person he is persuading, and he will sell a product or service that he truly believes will add value to his client's business or life. A manipulator, on the other hand, focuses only on himself. He is not serving the other person, but instead makes him or her a target for his own ends. This is the main difference between convincing and manipulating. Persuasive communication is the power of intent. Among the various communications available, persuasive communication has recently been billed with some negative significance. It is associated with the manipulation of opinions, ideas, and people. It is true that it can be used in this way, but we cannot ignore the importance it has. Excellent persuasive communication skills can also support good initiatives and combat bad ideas or goals. It is a type of communication that is trained in large organizations and a skill that is valued at high levels and in politics. We live in the age of communication, and although we did not stop thinking about it, we are all communicators. Social networks have given us a scenario in which we communicate daily with other people from different cultures with many different types of ideas and opinions. In many cases, where we influence others, we do not intend to do so, or what we say ourselves. But somehow, all people give their opinion or opinion on something at any time of the day, and everyone would like their opinion to be accepted and accepted or rejected for reasons at least. What is persuasive communication? Let's look at two definitions of communication persuasion. Persuasive communication is the intentional use of communication to initiate an important message with the aim of proliferating the audience. Persuasive communication is the intended use of communication to manipulate the masses. Is it the same message? Is it the same intention? The message may be positive or negative. Intent may be good or bad. But to be persuasive, communication requires communication, message, receiver, and channel. Let's see how these four elements work. Communication. There is a general tendency to accept or reject a message depending on who is communicating, rather than depending on the content of the message. Among the variables that contribute the most to persuasion is the reliability of the communicator and, although untrue, its appearance. The message. It is easier to convince other people when the message is a novel, contains few arguments, and is loaded with emotions, positive or negative, such as hope or fear. The message can be presented bilaterally so that the message presents the pros and cons of the idea or opinion. They are more convincing to the public who has more information and education. They can also occur unilaterally or partially. When the message shows only the location of the message's intent, these types of messages have a greater impact on people with less information. Recipient or audience. The variables that most influence are intelligence and esteem. These are the two factors that make the difference between accepting a message or rejecting it. The more intelligence and self-esteem, the higher the level of analysis before accepting the arguments of others. Curiously, the highest degree of persuasion has no immediate effect, but after several weeks, this is known in psychology as the irritating effect. The channel. Simple messages are more likely to be persuaded if presented through audiovisual media. More complex messages are better persuaded through the media. Belief or manipulation. We often confuse the meaning of these two terms. Persuasive communication is every intention-oriented communication. This intention is often nothing more than the desire of other people to support our ideas and opinions, and in many cases they are good ideas. Ideas that can greatly contribute to the well-being of others, helping to improve our social or professional environment. Not all people want to manipulate others for their benefit. Everyone is continually using persuasive communication without knowing it. But this type of communication requires some techniques that can be trained. The most important are the logic. Many people defend their ideas or opinions based solely on emotions. Emotion-based opinions can make defending the most bizarre things right. But the lack of logic does not persuade much. The feeling is necessary, but in combination with logic. Education, a good education. People who try to impose their ideas based on insults and lack of respect Do not convince anyone. This is done daily on social networks. Presenting opinions with respect to others is much more convincing. The sense of humor. This should not be lacking, especially to be able to refute the opposing arguments. It is convenient to train irony, not sarcasm. Persuasive communication is an art. In fact, and based on the above, it can be said that persuasive communication is an art. As all arts can be trained, at least it is not enough to have some control over it and to use this much needed skill. Without persuasive communication, there is no leadership. No major projects could be done, nor could the ideas that hurt them stop. Gestures to increase your power of persuasion. 1. Know how to place yourself. In negotiation, in sales situation, or even during interactions, we tend to place ourselves in front of the interlocutor. Yet this position unconsciously creates a climate of confrontation and not of cooperation. During interviews or certain negotiations, you sit in front of your interlocutor with a table that separates you. This use makes you face each other, face to face. If you really want to create a climate of sympathy, the ideal is to be side by side. Take the example of some stores where vendors will approach you on the side and advise you by your side, both facing the product rather than face to face. This also applies in seduction. An unknown person will be more easily approached on the side than in front. 2. Take your distance, but not too much. The distance you have towards the other person also plays an important role. A radius of 45 centimeters corresponds to the intimate zone. From 1.3 meters to the personal zone, from 4 meters to the social zone. Beyond that, it is the public area. If you do not know the person, the intimate zone is to be banned, except exceptional situation. You can use the personal area to create a climate of sympathy and trust with the person. If, for example, you are speaking to a group, do not hesitate to move to be close to everyone and give each person importance. The best example is the situation of debate between several people. It is often more appropriate to place everyone in a circle rather than face to avoid face-to-face confrontation. 3. Use the touch well, without overdoing it. An application accompanied by physical contact with the person to whom you are applying is rarely refused. Touch, well used, creates excellent sympathy. Do not hesitate to support your speech with slight pressure on your arm or shoulder. However, there is a rule for touching the hierarchy. In a professional context, it is the superior who has the right to touch and not the opposite. Again, it depends on the people in front of you and the context. Everyone does not have the same tactile relationship with others. Many elements come into play: education, environment, culture, values, etc. Generally, you feel immediately if you can afford it with the person in front of you or not. It's a question of feeling during interaction and especially context. However, do not hesitate to use it in an informal climate and abuse it in seduction. 4. Imitation, the key to success. The famous synchronization technique, which you most certainly know, is the most powerful in terms of influence. We love those who look like us. A person will feel more in tune with you if you synchronize on his gestures, like a mirror. Be careful, and it's not about making a monkey. You're just going to adopt the same postures and the same attitude as the other. If he crosses his arms, do the same. If he scratches his head, imitates a few seconds later. But do it in a discreet and natural way, of course. Likewise, the other person will tend to adopt the same attitude as you. In front of a warm person, you will be warm. Facing a cold person, you will be neutral. Faced with a tense person, you will be tense. If the person speaks loudly, speak loudly. If the person speaks slowly, speak slowly. Short, you understood. By synchronizing with each other, you get in tune with him. This is an indispensable technique well known in NLP and influence. Use and abuse. 5. Do not close the doors. Many gestures cut off communication. The gestures to banish are cross arms and legs. Look elsewhere or focus on something other than the other party. Put your hands in your pocket. Place your hand in front of your mouth while talking. Carry an object and put it between you and the other. Also, avoid distracting or parasitic gestures that divert attention from the other. Play with an object in your hands. Scratching all the time. Play with your fingers. You're biting your nails. Parasitic mimicry. Persuasion tactics to influence anyone in the most effective way. Tactical persuasion number 1. Start your discussion on the right track. One of the biggest mistakes people make in persuading them is that they start talking about a topic or situation that the other person doesn't know or doesn't know yet. I have a friend who usually dives in the middle of a story or topic, which leaves me, and I think many other people, have no idea what he's talking about. It is essential to start your discussion at a point that people can relate to, preferably from the beginning. Unless you are sure you already know the basics of the discussion topic. Persuasion tactic number 2. Be clear in conveying your message. When you say he's angry, do you mean he's angry or are you crazy? Whenever you say or write something vague or that may lead to miscommunication, it is strongly recommended that you change the words to convey a clear message. Persuasion tactic number 3. Summarize or overview the big picture. This is vital when it comes to something that takes a little or longer to understand. This way, they can better relate the discussion to the overall scenario and absorb what you are saying. Persuasion tactic number 4. Be humble. Never brag or be arrogant because it's a big detour. The other side may think, in your own mind, that he is better than you, and you will simply hurt his ego. You can even pretend not to know the things you already know if it gives you an advantage in convincing you. Give him the impression that you are an ally and do not compete with him. Persuasion tactic number 5. Pay attention to what is said rather than what you will say next. This can be a little difficult to do initially. This is why it is essential to practice and improve your persuasion skills until it becomes part of you. When listening, do not interrupt while they speak. Wait a second or two before speaking. Avoid changing the subject as this indicates your disinterest. Persuasion tactic number 6. Choose the right time. When you are not in the mood or pressed for time, your persuasion efforts may fall on deaf ears because they will not pay attention to you. Ask first if you can have a few minutes of your time. If they say this is not a good time, ask for an agenda that suits your plan. Persuasion tactics number 7. Never disrespect anyone. Beware of the body signals you are giving. You may be pouting, breathing heavily, shaking your head, or rolling your eyes without realizing that you are offending others. Chapter 8. Mind Control. There are many ways to move people's minds and actions. So are home disciplines, school education, and commercials. In our daily life, we try various things to try to influence people. Greetings, writing letters, giving presents, sermon, request, persuasion, threat, confession of love, crying down. It is natural and not harmful to move people for that person and yourself. However, you can't use any method. Intimidation and fraud are crimes. Some ways are not forgiven ethically. Mind control is a very vicious and smart way to move people. If you fall into that trap, you will lose your true self and your will and be manipulated as you wish by an organization that uses mind control. Mind control. 14 psychological tips to achieve it. It might seem that mind control has something to do with superpowers, something like telepathy or the capacity to control the minds of others. But mind control refers to our ability to be aware of our thoughts and our emotions so that they do not dominate our behavior. When we have poor mental control, we may regret some actions or behaviors that we carry out. For example, by fighting with our partner and telling him things that we don't think about, things that, at a given time, when anger dominates us, may seem right. However, when we think coldly, we can realize that emotions have dominated us. 1. Connect with the here and now. Mind control is only possible when we are in the present moment, that is, in the here and now, connected to ourselves and our surroundings. If we live on unrealistic expectations or simply get carried away by our thoughts, we can carry out behaviors that we are not proud of later. Being in the present allows us to reflect on what is happening at this precise moment, which helps us to act accordingly to the situation and what we want. We control what we do. 2. Make use of self-reflection. Living in the present moment does not mean that we should get carried away by the situation without thinking about anything but feeling. But that is possible to make use of self-reflection, which is very important in the development of a person, and that allows us to learn from the experience. And it is that self-reflection is linked to observation and therefore to mind control. Reflecting and focusing attention on what happens not only around us, but also in our internal experience helps us to have higher mental power. 3. Work self-knowledge. When talking about mind control, we are referring to emotional regulation and therefore behavior. And he cannot speak emotional regulation if there is no understanding of our emotions before. That is why self-knowledge is necessary to be able to control the mind and regulate our behavior. 4. Improve your emotional intelligence. Self-knowledge is an essential aspect of emotional intelligence, but this type of intelligence also includes other skills that help regulate our behavior. For example, empathy and the ability to understand the emotions of others. 5. Do not live on autopilot. In the time in which we live, and because of how the mind works, we can live on autopilot. That is, we go around the world without paying attention to anything. We can get up in the morning, turn on the television, and not even know what our breakfast tastes like. We can get into the shower and not also feel the water that comes out of it. For greater mental control, it is necessary to stop living on autopilot and experience the present experience with observation and mindfulness. 6. Be aware. And this is achieved by being aware of our experience, whether external and internal. The vital many times is the willingness to want to be aware. For example, we may be talking to someone and be thinking about what we are going to say even before the other person has finished speaking. Or we can observe the other interlocutor carefully, not only in terms of what he verbalizes, but also in what your nonverbal language tells us. Being aware helps us control our mind. In this sense, controlling the mind is an act of will. 7. Meditate. Many people have the belief that meditation is simply a relaxation technique in which you only need to put yourself in the position of the meditator, and our mind will go blank. But meditation, while it is true that quiets the mind and relaxes us, allows us to observe our thoughts or our experiences, even unpleasant as in the case of Tonglen meditation, and accept the experience. This makes us much more balanced people and helps us improve our capacity for mind control. 8. Practice mindfulness. Although some people think that mindfulness is a type of meditation, it is not exactly so. Yes, it is true that full attention includes meditation in its practice, but it also includes other techniques that help develop attention, compassion, the ability to be in the present moment, non-judgmental mentality, and other characteristic principles of mindfulness. 9. When you see that you lose control, stop for 1 minute. A technique that can be very useful in many situations and that does not require more than a minute to practice it is meditation in a minute. This technique is ideal, for example, when we are in the office and feel saturated, or when we want to take the perspective of a situation that is affecting us, a fight with a partner, for example. 10. Develop and avoid feeling frustrated. People who are happier with what they do in their lives and feel fulfilled are more likely to interact better with other people, since they feel good about themselves and are not frustrated by who they are. Frustration creates conflicts with other people because we can project our failures into them, and we can even turn other individuals into our scapegoat. Being good with yourself helps to see the future clearly and stay on the same line without deviating. 11. Leave the comfort zone. It is also good to stimulate our mind to leave the comfort zone, to learn new things and be more aware of other situations that perhaps go unnoticed when we always do the same. 12. Do new activities. And this also includes doing new activities and discovering new tasks that we are not used to. By doing this, we set aside the automatisms and therefore mobilize all our attention and our resources. We become more present and more aware. 13. Have a life plan. To enjoy more excellent emotional health, it is also necessary to have a life plan because the objectives help us to continue on the path we desire, and we will suffer less for some temptations that may appear in our way. In addition, other goals can also help us maintain mental control. For example, if we practice physical exercise and follow a diet because we want to get a slender body, research shows that having clear, realistic, and motivating goals also helps prevent depression. 14. Reduce stress. The body and mind are connected, and therefore, stress can cause many problems, both in our body and in our behaviors or thoughts. It is hard to think clearly when we are stressed, especially if we feel burned. Sadness or anxiety can take hold of us, and our concentration and also our mental control suffers. In time of stress, for example, people are unable to control their eating habits. For greater mental control, it is good to enjoy greater well-being. Exercise to practice mind control. When we reach a certain moment in our personal development, we realize that in order to understand what is around us, it is essential to have control and knowledge about what is happening in our mind. If we do not control what happens up there, we could say that our ship goes without a rudder, sailing adrift at the mercy of whatever it may encounter. Our mind is packed with things. When we meditate, we become aware that within our mind, many thoughts, beliefs, images, ideas, etc. coexist. All these things start our desires at our whim without us being able to do anything. When you never expect it, something appears in your mind that has nothing to do with what you are living in that moment, and it sneaks freely, causing you to lose your concentration and, in the worst cases, staining the present moment of worry or anguish. Fortunately, with meditation, we gradually correct that predominance of the autonomy of unwanted thoughts. In addition, outside of meditation, we are able to bring that awareness to situations in which it is necessary. Usually, few people realize this mental dysfunction that governs our lives. We have become accustomed to not being present in our mind, and we do not realize what is happening there. Fortunately, in addition to meditation, there are numerous techniques and tools that lead us to find a way to be able to control the material that enters our brain. All of them help us decide where we want to put our attention by choosing, therefore, the thoughts we allow to visit us. Given the need to put a little control in our mind, let's see some simple exercises that, if we practice them with some consistency, they will get vast improvements in the domain of yourself. 1. Practice meditation. Dedicate 15 or 20 minutes a day to inner silence or meditation. You do not need, in principle, any specific technique. It is only necessary that you be able to observe those thoughts that make an appearance in your mind. Sit comfortably, and after taking several deep breaths, Get ready to wait for the next thought that comes to your mind. Wait, it won't take long to arrive. When I arrive, become aware that he is there and observe him. For example, if a thought comes about the meeting you will have later in work, say, here it is, the work meeting. Watch and let it go. Get ready to wait for the next one. When he arrives again, you watch him and let him go. Be aware, at the same time, of the spaces that exist between those thoughts. In this way, you will become, for a while, the witness of the game of your mind, and you will have left the identification that previously made you live unconsciously. 2. Put all your attention on one thing. This exercise consists of fixing all your attention, alone, on one of the thoughts that our mind contains. It is necessary to maintain focus for at least 5 minutes. It is normal that at the beginning the concentration time is very short, but if you keep the record, the time will increase progressively. We could say that exercising attention requires, as in the muscles, regular training to obtain visible results. 3. Don't think about anything. I only recommend this exercise when you have already achieved a particular skill with the previous 2. It is about blocking the entrance of thoughts into the mind. In the beginning, you will only be able to do it for brief moments, but, as we have said before, little by little you will be able to stay longer, thus being the owner and lord of your own head. If you manage to combine the 3 previous exercises with the little tricks that I propose below, I assure you that, in addition to improving control over your mind, you will provide great help to your brain to wake up and activate certain areas that, until now, were asleep. 4. Practice mind games. If you usually practice mind games like Sudoku or crosswords, you will improve and start your activity and brain agility. It will also enhance your ability to concentrate. You don't need to practice it for more than 15 to 20 minutes. 5. Change hand. Change the hand with which you perform certain activities. Brush your teeth with the opposite hand, or turn the hand with which you carry the shopping bag. This will get new connections in your brain. 6. Learn something new. Learning something new makes different brain areas get along. Try to learn some language, read other types of books, or learn to skate. Anything works. You will activate your memory, and again, your ability to concentrate will increase. 7. Memorize phone numbers. Currently, with the use of mobile phones, we no longer need to memorize almost anything. The phone does it for us while our brain uses to atrophy. Try to remember several phone numbers every day, and your brain needs material to exercise memory. 8. Make lists of different things. You can make lists of very different things, from places you have visited, from people you met doing a course, from the best moments of your life, or from what you most like to eat. For example, these lists help increase brain activity and make data associations. Ways to increase your mind control. It is called mind control, self-control, or self-control. In any of its meanings, there is a fact that we must be clear. There is no magic in this type of process, but there is a lot of psychology. We are facing that valuable capacity that we should all train at some time to manage our inner world in an intelligent, constructive, and useful way. It is often said that people have a real obsession to control everything, even ourselves. However, it is an impossible goal to achieve in its entirety, which does not mean that we do not have room for improvement. Mind control can help us, among other things, and reduce the impact of stress. Far from seeing this competition as an almost supernatural ability, we must understand it as that ability which, in our favor, can mediate in balance and well-being. 1. Self-knowledge increases mind control. Research such as the one carried out by the UCL Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience at the University College London points us to something interesting. Our mental universe is very similar to that of a computer. We create connections, thoughts travel through electrical impulses, and we also have a highly specialized brain. However, there is something that clearly sets us apart from machines: our emotions and our sense of consciousness. Self-knowledge is that dimension with which we connect with what we are, what we want, expect, and need. A good number of people would not know how to identify their deepest motivations or expose those internal realities by which they initiate, maintain, or end their behaviors/habits. Thus, a key strategy to increase our mental control and well-being is to deepen ourselves. Knowing who we are, what identifies us, and what we hope allows us to find the motivation to take the reins of our lives. 2. Disable autopilot. Walking in pilot mode auto is to go through life without overthinking about anything, abstracted in a distant dimension to what happens. We pass from one thought to another and from one behavior to another, without having the slightest idea of why. We feel that it is a life that takes us, although we do not know precisely where. 3. Slow down, appreciate the present, and take control. Learning to deactivate the impulse of emotions is not easy, especially if we were educated in an environment that did not attach much importance to impulse control. Perhaps our current life is driven by haste, demand, anxiety, and I must have everything ready for tomorrow. Learning to be more present, slow down, and manage emotions is a great step forward. One way to train your mind to focus on appreciating the here and now and increasing your mental control is by practicing mindfulness. 4. Chew and move frustration. Who has not experienced frustration? The feeling that reality does not meet our expectations, which occurs when, despite the efforts, we do not achieve the desired result. Some small, other giants. Love that wasn't there, a connection that didn't see the light, the money needed. There can be many reasons. We are immersed in a reality that forces us to give up continually. It's normal. The point is, some accept it and others don't. Learning to accept, chew, and digest frustration is not easy. If we don't do this, anger will easily overwhelm our heart and dominate our mind and our lives. It's easy for us to become a few cheats. Influencing people with 3 well-guarded mind control tricks. Mind control tricks can be compared with the way magicians control our minds during their shows. In a way, those tricksters use quick actions to deceive our eyes and to control our minds. The serious topic of mind control, on the other hand, deals with how a person can persuade another person to think in a certain manner. The use of mind control tricks is the best way to influence people subtly. Do not be mistaken, though, because although these tricks have nothing to do with magic, but they do produce amazing results, these techniques can be used to your advantage by making you more successful in business or personal life. There are many techniques to learn if you want to try using mind control tricks. You can use reverse psychology, which is actually the oldest trick in the book. The reality is, anyone can use this. That is, those who are smart enough. People use reverse psychology when they know that what they want will not be approved by other people. Instead of being persistent to the point of being annoying, some people opt to go the other way and simply wait for the opposition. In the end, you will get to want you have persuaded other people to agree with what you want, even if they think it was their idea in the first place. Another mind control trick is to always be positive. This is the easiest because all it takes is for you to avoid dwelling on negative thoughts. As much as possible, take away the words don't, no, and not from your vocabulary. Instead of telling yourself you can't, insist that you can. This gives your mind the chance to believe that you really can, and eventually your mind will tell your body that everything is possible. You have to keep in mind that people react negatively to negative thoughts, so think, feel, and act positive. That way, other people will see you as a reliable and trustworthy person. Confusion technique is probably the best technique, especially if you want to put someone off guard. No one wants to get confused, and even if they do, they will not immediately admit to it. A highly successful person must always be sure of himself and in everything he does. Try to confuse that person, and he will be too embarrassed to deny you with anything you want. This is the perfect way to influence someone and persuade him to do exactly what you want. These mind control tricks are very useful indeed, but they can also result with some problems if they are not used properly. You have to remember that you need to use well-guarded techniques if you want to gain control of every situation. You can effectively improve yourself by being subtle in applying the tricks, and if you have the patience to practice the craft, these methods may seem easy to do, but they do need to be learned and practiced well if you want to get the best results.
And that's where we're pausing today. It actually says chapter 9 and 10, but when he says it, it's like 6 and 7 or 7 and 8. Oh, lost my track here. But I know in the book we are at chapter 9 and 10. So, I know it was lengthy, but this book is actually 2 books, so we've got a lot of catching up to do. I've been slacking, super sorry. I hope that you've enjoyed what you've been seeing. Like, subscribe, share, comment today, please. Thumbs up. And if no one's told you today, I love you. And thanks for looking out. Take care and stay safe.